Dynamite air flute.
Being Jethro Tull. All right, Awesemo, here we go. We are back. It is your old pal EMac. It is Terry McBride. We just did NBA Live Before Lock. Now we are doing NFL Live Before Lock. Kickoff is at 8:15 tonight. The Green Bay Packers just finished winning their game against the Los Angeles Rams. We will now get to see what happens with the Baltimore Ravens, who will be at the Buffalo Bills. A couple key things that we want to know about are some injuries here. I did not have a chance to pull the inactives list, but let's, because you guys know where we were just a few moments. Active.
Yeah, I didn't see anything crazy.
I don't think nothing should be overly surprising. So active. That was the one, so he basically played week 17. TJ Yeldon, who I had thought when I wrote my article was still in the COVID protocol, he is going to be active. But who knows what's going to go on there. And then the Ravens kind of doing the same thing. Mark Ingram is inactive yet again. I think he's played like 2 or 3 snaps like since week 12. Like that. So
Ingram wasn't really on the board for me. Williams was kind of just as like a total dart throw in on like a massive field GPP. If you're entering 150, maybe working 1 or 2, but guess not.
Yep. So that is the key. Why is this not searching? There we go. Yes. Okay. So Ingram is inactive, and I'm just looking quickly. Yep. So nothing surprising. So, Tyler Kroft is not active.
Okay.
That one is, I only point that one out because that's one less tight end potentially that could catch a touchdown. The position has 8 on the season. Kroft has 3 of those. He only played in 6 games. So Josh Allen not playing favorites when it comes to tight ends. Isaiah McKenzie is active as well. He's deep down the receiver bench. And then Reggie Gilliam, Lee Smith are the active tight ends along with Dawson Knox. Those were just the key things we wanted to talk about there. All right, so let's talk.
Closer Lee Smith,
Lee Arthur Smith. Let's not. We could talk baseball forever, but we're not going to do that. We're going to say hi to No House Advantage. They are the sponsor of the show. We'll talk about them and the free projections we have here at Awesemo for their game. So if you sign up with No House Advantage, use the promo code Awesemo. They'll match you up to your first $20 with your initial deposit. Refer a friend. When they make their deposit, you get another $5. Beat your friends. Don't worry about the house. No House Advantage. Let's see. Other key things that we need to know. The Awesemo tools and content. Every sport, weekly pass, $29.95. This includes full access to all premium content and tools, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, which is key, and so much more. You want to play NFL only? We still have that Express Pass, $3.95 a week. It's all the Showdown content, which is essentially what we're down to now after this round or after tonight, basically. So definitely check that out. $3.95 it's a steal. On that one. And then let's jump right into our talk here. So sorry, I've got too many basketball tabs still open. I'm assuming you got all
stuff too.
If you got all your stuff, let me get back to my notes here. All right, so Baltimore Ravens looking at a 24 implied team total, depending on which site that you are looking at. We of course have 2 phenomenal plays at quarterback here. Fantasy goodness abounds. You have the reigning NFL MVP, Lamar Jackson, disappointed us. I'm using air quotes, Terry, if you're not looking at me. Disappointed us with his second straight 1,000-yard rushing campaign, yet somehow it wasn't quite as good as it was last time. For his career, he is averaging 6 yards per carry and 63.2 rushing yards per game. For those of you doing the math at home, I believe it's 67.5 works out to 1,000-yard season. So he's pretty good. Guess what? That number goes up as we get down the stretch, and especially in the playoffs. Last week he had like 14, 15 carries, and he broke the 100-yard mark. So we'll have to check that out. Now, on the flip side, he did throw 10 fewer touchdowns than the 35 or 6 that he had last year. He had 26 this year. That was 12th most. His 183 passing yards per game, that was the 3rd lowest among regular starters. But this is the playoffs. He's consolidating everything with him. He is clearly Baltimore's best player. And you do not have to play him with his pass catchers. I think he is fine in your flex. I think he is fine in your captain/MVP spot. But I'm kind of leaning with Josh Allen on this one. So let's get us up to, where are we on the likes? We've got 200 people watching. Get us up to 100 likes. I'll drop in 10 DK head-to-heads for the Showdown slate for you guys. I was doing too many things for NBA, but get us up to 100 likes, and we'll go there. What do you want to do with Josh Allen, and take us through the Ravens running back core?
Yeah, so you kind of talked about the Ravens' best running back. He plays the quarterback spot. So when you've got him in there, it's just a killer option. It's an embarrassment of riches. You touched on it. 1,005 yards, 7 TDs on 159 rushing attempts this year in the regular season, 6.3 yards per rushing attempt. Just a dominant season. Just looking, since I've got it in front of me, he was the 3rd leading rusher for the full slate of both weekend games with his 1,005 yards, just behind Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb on the season, and a dominant number of touchdowns. So he does not need to throw touchdown passes to be the best quarterback available on the full slate. He certainly doesn't need to do it in a showdown slate. Really like both quarterbacks. There were 2 guys I was getting to a lot this year. I was all over Josh Allen for most of the year. He was one of my higher on quarterbacks all season long, and kind of rewarded my faith. So I'll be right back there again. I think if I was choosing just X tool to take a look at the single game slate, if I was choosing between the 2 for DK, it looks like I would probably lean Jackson a little bit, even though he's a little bit 200 more expensive. It keeps his ownership down slightly at the captain spot, and he's a little bit more than that delta to be the top scorer over Allen. So I can justify getting to Jackson there. On FanDuel, is this right? I think our FanDuel sheet might be missing Josh Allen. Are you looking at that by any chance?
I am not. What are you trying to pull?
The FanDuel, the top stacks for the Showdown slate for the single game for FanDuel. Looks like Josh Allen's not on there, which makes a big difference. Lamar Jackson, though, does look spectacular on that, of course. 39% probability to be in the top scorer, 27% captain ownership. So I think on FanDuel, you can't go wrong rostering either one. But with pushing 40% probability of being your top scorer, I see Stephon Diggs is here with 10, and then there's some distributed to some of these other guys. So I'm guessing Jackson's going to have the edge over on FanDuel as well. But I really have no issues going to either one. And I think Allen is the better passer of the 2 by a significant margin. So you can definitely, if we're talking about what we're looking for a more traditional quarterback game, then you're talking about, Josh Allen's your play. Last week, we saw him go 26 of 35, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also runs the ball, 11 carries, 54 yards, and also put one in on the ground. So he's a guy who can get it done both ways. They're 2 very dynamic plays. I would be the vast majority, I think, of captain ownership will go to these guys, and justifiably so.
Yeah, I wonder if there might be, there's another Josh Allen in the player pool. I wonder if that's causing some sort of transition lookup. Yeah, because he's half his numbers are showing up. So there, if you sort it. So we don't have captain ownership in there, but his top stack is 38.2. If you sort it by top stack, it should pop up there for you. Because I'm looking at it.
There he is.
Yeah. I don't know. The sort's not working very well.
I didn't realize I had it sorted by the ownership. I usually click that right away. There it is. Yeah, first it went to 0. So yeah. So all right. So 38% probability of being the top scorer. So right in line with Jackson, and right around where we expected him. So given that we don't have the ownership number at the captain spot, I think the everything I said just before still stands. He's a little bit more expensive. I don't mind getting to either one of those guys. I think that's fairly obvious.
While you're doing that, I just want to see. There we go. Showdown single slate ownership. We have So we have you guys are wondering why is this not on the tool? Well, we have a variety of tools here, and some of them are in the different packages. So if this is one of those, as we carve out some of those express things, and just look, I'm sure they'll get this fixed because one of them will be watching the show. But right now, if we look at Josh Allen, we're looking at 76% ownership on DK or FanDuel combined. 30% in the MVP, 47% in the utility. That's 2 percentage points higher in each category over Lamar Jackson for comparative purposes on that one. All right. Running backs here, a whole lot of them. Yeah, you've got J.K. Dobbins, who has been solid, I guess, but it's very risky. He's 12,500 on FanDuel. That's priced like an RB1. He does have 6 straight games with at least 13 fantasy points, but the floor is like 5 fantasy points. And what is the ceiling? Well, he's going to need to get 2 touchdowns. And he's dealing with Gus Edwards, Lamar Jackson, the running back, and Lamar Jackson, the throwing quarterback. That's kind of hard. So he's been surviving on that. You should see Gus Edwards, who I'm interested in on DK, where he is $5,000 cheaper than Dobbins. That is a huge savings. On FanDuel, he's cheaper as well, but it's not quite that dramatic. I'd still lean towards Gus Edwards personally in this one. And you're just hoping if there's a touchdown that doesn't go to Lamar Jackson on the ground, he gets it. But for that salary savings, because we're going to talk a lot about the Buffalo options, do we have to play someone from Baltimore? Yes, we do. But it feels like everything's pointing to Buffalo. So those are kind of the guys who are a little bit of meh there. The wide receiver position. So during the regular season, they attempted Baltimore attempted 406 passes. That's 10% fewer pass attempts than Tennessee, or probably than New England, and 20% less than Tennessee and Cleveland. So those were the other 3 lowest teams, and they were 10 to 20% below them. This just wreaks havoc for having PPR points out there. This is the exact opposite of a Tom Brady or a Ben Roethlisberger type situation. So you can get Marquise Brown. He's going to be popular. He has scored in 5 touchdowns in 5 of his last 6 games, 6 total touchdowns in those. That is keeping his fantasy hopes alive at this point. He is the most likely one to catch a touchdown, but do we want to bet on that? I don't know. You've got Willie Snead, Miles Boykin, and Des Bryant. I would say my favorite is probably Boykin amongst those. This is just the 6th game Des Bryant has played in the last 3 years. Let's just keep that in mind. Not Des Bryant, the usual Des Bryant. So if I had to play one of them, I would play Miles Boykin of the Snead, Boykin, Des Bryant crew. Mark Andrews, we may as well count him as a pass catcher. He has 35 of the 39 tight end targets over the last 6 games. That of those 4 that went elsewhere, 3 of those occurred in the 2 games he sat due to injury.
So basically, when he's not out there, they just ignore the tight end entirely, and probably Lamar doesn't even throw those; he just runs with them. Yes. The way they play or hands them off. So yeah, it's a team that's just super, super focused on the running game, keeping the ball on the ground. With this set of receivers, that also kind of makes sense. There's just not a lot of guys that I trust. I think Andrews has probably the best hands on the team at the tight end spot. Don't love Hollywood at all. Mention him. Makajeski and I managed to do the entire full slate show without talking about Hollywood. I mentioned him at the very end because he caught my eye as somebody who was getting like massive over ownership compared to his boom score. And Makajeski made a noise a lot like the noise you made when I told you my Robert Covington exposure before on the NBA show. Just not a play that I'm comfortable with. You're right. He is probably the guy. If somebody's going for 102 on this team through the air, it's probably going to be him. It's just not a guy that we really trust or that I like getting to. And he's a guy that is going to be rostered at 9,600 on DK, 8% of the field's getting to him in the captain spot, 30% of the field getting to him in the utility spot, only coming up 26% probability of being a 2 to 6 top scorer. So that's a spot I can start to look away from. I would have him certainly as a mix-in, but I don't want to be like, far over the field on a play like him. Look to, for me, definitely some of those guys that you mentioned, the lesser pass catchers. I think it makes sense to look to Boykin over aging Des Bryant, who probably a lot of people out there at this point don't even remember Des when he was good. He cost 600 for a reason. He's 9.9% utility ownership on DK. That's probably high for what he's going to give us. He's got a 0.4% probability of being in the top 2 through 6, a 0.6% probability of being your top scorer overall. I don't need to get to Dez, despite the tremendous savings, unless you really, really need to use that money to build with. Boykin, I think, is a lot more dynamic, does a lot more, and has a future with the team. Somebody that they're maybe building on. So give me him in that spot. Willie Snead, not a guy I love, but the price makes some sense. He's involved to some degree. He can catch the ball from time to time. I think I've seen him drop more passes in his career than I've seen him catch. But he's out there. He's a breathing body. I like him definitely a lot better in the utility. I don't think I would captain him.
All right. I just realized that, hey, I signed up for the 8 o'clock NBA slate, so I'm gonna just throw some lineups in here real quick. Good thing I paid attention there, huh? That would have been paying the rake for somebody. Fortunately, I don't have that many here.
I would have definitely missed that if that was me. That's good on you.
Well, it works out because
during the NBA show about my main slate.
Well, I'm just chuckling because I didn't really change anything other than just remove the first game because I was playing so heavy on everybody else. That's true. Yeah, it's really my player pool is going to be just fine. So, and I had an okay placeholder lineup in there, but let's get that. Always important. I did see someone was mentioning Ricard, and that's what reminded me to go look at my lineups. And that's where I saw, I'm signed up for some of these because I believe I have built out my cash lineup. And I know we don't have very many people watching tonight, just about 300. Let's get to 50 likes because I want to put these head-to-heads out there for you. So let's go get the 50 likes, and we will do that.
If the people out there are thinking about it, he's basically paying you guys to hit that like button with the way these head-to-heads go. So.
It is. And I guarantee I'm playing Ricard in my head-to-head lineup because he's so cheap on DK.
Is Fred VanVleet guaranteed to be in this lineup too, or is he?
Not his game already started. So technicalities. So let's talk Josh Allen for just a moment here. Nice. And I see we got the 50 likes. See, it wasn't that hard.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do. We do. Because Josh Engelman is going to be looking at these and laughing at us. Don't let Josh laugh at us. But Josh Allen, the early calls for Josh Allen for MVP, they kind of went away around midseason, but he has been playing like an MVP over his last few games. Baltimore is the 10th best passing DVOA, and they have the 12th best rushing DVOA. So here's what I want to point out with the Ravens. It feels like those are okay numbers, but it feels like gamers are thinking of them as the Ray Lewis version of the Ravens defense. They're not. They have allowed just 3 quarterbacks this year to pass for more than 300 yards. That was Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield in one of the 2 games, and Dwayne Haskins. Do you remember Dwayne Haskins? Well, here are the people they have faced.
Not like the other.
Yeah, here are the other people they faced. Roethlisberger twice, Tannehill twice, Rivers, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, Carson Wentz, Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, Daniel Jones, Gardner Minshew, and Brandon Allen. Would you really want any of those guys on your fantasy team, let alone that's the opposing quarterback? So they lucked out with their fantasy team. They lucked out with their schedule this year. So Josh Allen, phenomenal. So that's where I'm saying I've put Josh Allen ahead of Lamar Jackson. Zach Moss being out on the injured reserve with an ankle issue finally consolidates everything for Devin Singletary from the jump. We've had a couple games way back at the beginning of the season where we saw Singletary basically get 85% of the snaps, and he was a perfectly serviceable RB1. It's just always been the issue with he's basically splitting everything even with Singletary. I'm not that excited about TJ Yeldon. I don't think he'll even be in my player pool, but I do like Devin Singletary. What do you like here from the backfield of Buffalo? And we've got 20 minutes before lock.
Yeah, Singletary definitely makes the most sense. I think you touched on it. He was a player that I thought was going to get involved and kind of go out there and make a statement and win that job, and maybe not be the full bell cow type of a back because they did want to work Moss in early in the season. But I thought he would kind of put a bit more of a stranglehold on this job, and we saw him, just not really be able to do that. You mentioned the snaps. The first 2 weeks, they were 59, like 55, 45, let's say, just round it down. And then weeks 3 and 4, Singletary went up to 87, 89% of the snaps. And then he dropped down back into the 60s and then all the way down to the 50s, the mid 40s through the middle of the season in the weeks 7 through 11. So this is a guy who lost his job and has struggled to really put it all together on the field. So I think the opportunity is definitely there. I think he's definitely a guy who could disappoint us again, though. So I don't love him. I like a lot of the other pieces for the Bills better than I like Singletary, but I think he's definitely the back that you use out of this backfield. I don't want any part of TJ Yeldon. We mentioned Antonio Williams not going to be active tonight. So I think he's going to be the guy who's getting the ball there. I just, he's got to perform for us. And, I think probably for his career, this is a big night, in terms of what the Bills are going to think of him going forward. So yeah, hopefully he puts it all together.
That's actually a really good point to bring up, and it's by no means is that hyperbolic at all. So, all right. So the 10 head-to-heads are in there. Username EMac. Let's talk about join, and I guarantee you, I'm playing Ricard in those lineups. Looking at the wide receivers, so this is kind of weird. So you've got Stephon Diggs, who led the league in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. He had eight. I think he had eight. It was 8 touchdowns, 7 or 8 touchdowns. So that's kind of like the only knock that we have for him. Baltimore knows this. They're going to be focusing on him. I don't know that Josh Allen doesn't seem to care, and he's going to be throwing to him, but he's going to have to earn his stripes tonight for sure. What do we do after Diggs, right? Because the whole league knows that it's Diggs. It's the Diggs is option 1, 2, and 3 until you get into the red zone and magically a creative player catches a touchdown, usually a tight end. We have John Brown, who played last week, 4 targets, posted a 0. If I had him and I had a ton of him and a ton of Ronald Jones, just zeros, that's no bueno. On that one.
We were playing on different sites, but we were probably very evenly ranked in our tournaments that we were playing in because I had quite a bit of those two as well.
Yeah.
That's the kind of example, though. Again, we talk about it a lot. It goes to process. Those guys were correct process decisions last week. The results just weren't there.
Yeah. So we've got Cole Beasley, who's banged up, but he sort of is playing the role of, except in the red zone, kind of getting those short touchdown, those short tight end type routes and targets. He is much more dynamic of a receiver than we really saw from him when he was with the Cowboys, except for, the occasional appearance there on Thanksgiving when he'd break everybody's hearts because you didn't trust him and then he'd have a 2-touchdown game or whatever it is. So I could be making that up. I don't remember, but it certainly feels that way. I like him. I'm a little nervous that he's dinged up, but he and John Brown, I think, are relatively equal in these sorts of things. The kind of the odd man out is rookie Gabriel Davis. Now he's totally a home run threat, totally good for potential touchdowns there. But, this isn't going to be easy. I mean, so let's assign targets. Let's give Brown 4 to 5. Feels about right again. Oh, revenge. He did play 1 year for Baltimore. Cole Beasley, I think 7 or 8 for Beasley. I think 3 or 4 for Gabriel Davis.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. We could see, the Beasley number could go up a little higher just depending on game script and where they're at on the field. So if they're playing a lot between the 40s or whatever, you could see a few more underneath type passes that he ends up scooping up. But I think, obviously Diggs, like you said, is going to get a tremendous amount of the defensive focus. He's going to get a tremendous amount of the DFS focus. That makes all the sense in the world. 166 targets, 127 receptions, 1,500 yards, 8 TDs on the year. Average depth of target wise, he's at 10.1. Where if you look down, John Brown, who you mentioned, is at 12.4, a little bit of a deeper threat. And then you go up to Gabriel Davis, 15.2. So like you said, home run threat. It's just how many opportunities are you going to get? He's going to have to hit that home run for you probably on 1 pitch, 2 pitches. So to extend that multi-sport analogy a little bit, So I think out of the guys that are, more the mix-in type guys, I think it makes sense to look at Brown the most. He's probably going to have the most reliable volume and the most reliable upside toward that big play, that big touchdown reception. So give me a lot of Brown there. I would mix in some Davis. I think there is that threat of putting up enough that he's going to be relevant, and at the price, it makes a lot of sense. And then Beasley, I think, is kind of a volume play. He's a guy that if you've got the right amount of salary, you plug him in and you can kind of rely on the score that he's going to give you. It's most likely not going to be a big upside score, but it's a fairly high floor on his score. So I can work with some Cole Beasley there. You mentioned just, with Diggs, with the difficulty in coverage and everything, and you're totally right. It's so much fun to watch Allen try and throw the ball to Diggs when he's like double covered, and Allen just doesn't care. He'll sling the ball in there at any time. And Diggs comes up with these catches that they're just really, really fun to watch if, from a football perspective. So yeah, I've been watching that all season. It's been entertaining.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy that it's worked, which
it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. That's the kind of the whole point here, that this shouldn't be working, yet it does week after week after week. Here's a good question. Would you go with Gabriel Davis or Dawson Knox? I think they're both going to get 3 or so, 4, maybe 4 targets.
I would, if I could lock in 4 targets for Knox, I'm guessing that 2 of them will probably come near the red zone. So I would probably go in that direction. I think there's a little bit more touchdown upside. There's definitely more like big play yardage, home run type upside in Gabriel Davis. He's the kind of guy that you could rip off. He catches one ball for 64 yards and a touchdown. That's a relevant score on a single game showdown slate. Where if Knox catches 3 of 4 for 22 yards and nothing else, it's pretty irrelevant. But we've seen Knox get some volume in the red zone. He's a tight end I've gotten to a little bit through the year. So on a little bit of bias, maybe I would probably lean into Knox there.
All right. And then that gets us back to the defenses here. And then we'll talk a little bit of strategy. We've got 12 minutes left here. So Tennessee was sacked. Tennessee got to Lamar Jackson 5 times last week. In the 3 games prior to that against Cincinnati, Jacksonville, and the New York Giants, they had 1 sack of Lamar. Buffalo, middle of the road with just over 2 sacks per game. They are 3rd with 26 takeaways. So I wanted to point that out. They're cheap. Well, this is the first time we've seen some cheap defenses. They're going against dynamic quarterbacks. That's why we're getting defenses with a 3 as their leading number instead of a 4, a 5, or a 6 over there on DK. Then we also have Buffalo. I didn't mention, but Buffalo has allowed just 6 sacks and 6 turnovers in their last 6 games. 6, 6, 7. That's the neighbor of the beast. All right.
Yeah,
what do we do? How many lineups? Let me rephrase this. How many lineups would you get to before you don't have that you don't have both Lamar and Josh Allen in them?
Interesting. On DK, it would probably come sooner than on FanDuel just because of the increased price with putting one of them in the captain spot, where you don't have that problem on FanDuel. So I think you could probably do it to an extended degree on FanDuel. That said, I do think a lot of people are going to be obviously going that route when we look at the ownership numbers, when we just look at, the obvious nature of how the public puts their lineups together and where these clicks go. I think it does make sense to start deviating that from that, maybe as you take the sample of the lineups that actually go into the tournament rather than what comes out of the crunch, let it come up a lot in the crunch, but maybe start to look for it at a sooner slice than it would come up naturally, just to get away from the field a little bit. Maybe I would start doing that. So I like to try and get different in ways like that, where I'm still building good quality lineups. And it's tricky to do that without both of those guys tonight too. There's just a lot of variance in some of these players, a lot of, very questionable plays. So it's tricky, but yeah, I do like, for differentiation purposes, getting to that when you can.
All right. I am crunching a few more lineups here. Fortunately, I have all my rules set. I do want to talk real quick about No House Advantage. So I sort of mentioned we have free projections for them. We do. So No House Advantage is their prop fantasy site. So if you're in a state that doesn't allow prop or doesn't allow betting, this is a way that you can play some prop betting, because this is how they've designed their contest. So basically, depending on what they're running, and they do a lot of single game stuff. They do PGA, NFL, NBA. They're considering doing NHL. They want to get a little bit bigger before they do that, but they're running a lot of overlay in their contest. This is kind of a marketing tool we've seen a lot of new sites do. So it's something you want to check out. I'm going to drop the link here in chat, but that will get you to our free projections, because how this works is they'll give you between 20 and 40 questions, depending on the size of the slate, the game, the format, whatever it might be. But you're playing head-to-head, 50-50s, GPPs, etc. So it's all the formats we're used to doing, and they call it peer-to-peer. That's what DK and FanDuel are. We're playing each other. We're not playing the house, right? So regular prop wagering, you're betting against the house. Here, you're looking at the list of questions, and then you're choosing yours, ranking them with the confidence point, and then if they're right or wrong, that creates your score. But you're going against other gamers, right? So no house advantage. That's why they call their company that. But if you they are on the web, obviously, and they have a very slick mobile app. If you want to check that out, that is available in the usual app stores. If you sign up using the promo code Awesemo, your first deposit, they will match up to $20. Refer a friend. When they make their first cash deposit, you'll get another $5. Enjoy. That's a little fun way to see it things a little bit differently, and other ways to play fantasy sports.
A fun site too. And when you use, our projections, or if you're looking at, Alex's statistical projections, it's the same as, if you watch the strategy show for NFL earlier today, Matt was talking about that a lot, where he uses Alex's statistical projections to pick off player props. You can do the same thing over on No House Advantage, and there's significant edge in that, because not everybody who's going to that site is doing that.
All right, let's see here. Why is that not building any more teams? Okay, so that looks like about the number I'm going to have. We have 9 minutes until lock. Ooh, Lamar Jackson using 49% in the captain spot. That feels like a lot. But
where's he coming up on?
It's about double. Melissa asking a question. Melissa, I hope you got one of those games. She continues to kick my ass in these head-to-heads. So, hey, soft
get
money
him,
out
Melissa.
there. Just
down.
have some fun. Although
I don't mind
2 of the weeks I've won 90% of my games, and I've lost to her.
Nice.
And then several of the weeks I've been swept by the audience. But there we go. She's asking about Lee Smith as a potential punt play. Sure. I've chosen to go with Ricard, but I know she plays DK. So at that extreme salary saving, you're accepting of a 0. There's a chance they're going to get 1 or 2 opportunities, but you're accepting of the 0 because it's letting you get all these other phenomenal plays, as opposed to rolling the dice. So the weather, cold, it's in the low 30s. There is some wind, but there may be some snow flurries, but it'll be more like spontaneous lake effect snow at this point. So it's just going to be cold and breezy in Buffalo. So might affect, field goals over 40 yards, but it's not enough that I'm letting that dictate what I'm doing with the kickers, but just throwing that out there. So
makes sense. Yeah, I think, for 200, you're, like you said, you're not concerned about the 0. That's a rounding error as far as the price on some of these other guys. So if it lets you get to something that is a big upgrade over what else you could do, definitely don't mind it.
Did I set up my group? I gotta go look at. So I can only play at most 2 of the kickers in defense. I'm playing at least 1 pat. That's why it screwed up. I had Marquise Brown captain with Lamar Jackson. Damn it, I just did it again.
Yep.
I need to have Lamar Jackson captain, Marquise Brown not captain. That is going to change some things.
That would probably shake things up for you.
Yeah.
I don't mind though. Like, you said you were 40-something% Lamar. Given that he's on DK, 31% probability of being the top scorer, 18-ish% owned, I don't mind getting to 40 on him.
Oh, that's why that's not working either.
I'm just taking like a look around for some of these.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I had some conflicting rules here.
I built one lineup for FanDuel tonight. I just threw one in just while you were talking just before I completely lied to everybody before. The first and only lineup I built did not have both quarterbacks in it. I went with a Josh Allen stack and left some money on the table just to be different. But I played guys who were going to be really relevant. So hoping for a single bullet in the massive field GPP. Just taking a look, though, like I said, through some of these guys. We didn't really touch on the kickers. Do you think the kickers have much relevance here tonight? It's not a play that I get to a ton, but they're in the mix, I guess, specifically for utility. I don't like to get to the captain spot with them very much. Going over owned at even at 2.0, 2.6% in the captain spot on DK, but they're relevant on both sites for the utility spots, at least a little bit. And if we start thinking about game scripting and we start thinking about, all right, maybe we're leaving Lamar out of our lineup, we think that goes run heavy. He doesn't throw a touchdown pass. He doesn't happen to be the guy who breaks it off and runs the ball in for them. So maybe that becomes a keep the ball on the ground, kick a few field goals kind of a game script, and maybe the kicker pays off there. So just in that kind of a line of thought, I can get to a kicker like Justin Tucker, 22% probability of being top 2 to 5 on FanDuel, similar on DK, lower on DK, top 2 to 6, 13.4%. But you get decent price on him. So I can mix Tucker in a little bit less so on the Bills kicker, but I think it's there. But I like the upside of the Bills offense, and I think they're going to be throwing the ball around a little bit more.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just upload these now.
Did you end up with any TJ Yeldon shares?
5%. That's what I was just looking at. So I maxed it at 5%. So that was.
You hit your cap.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I boosted his points to 3.
Okay, so you were trying to get him.
Yes, but I didn't want him more than.
Makes sense.
5%. No, so I've got the defenses. I've got 25% of each in the flex. The kickers, I have 38% of each in the flex. Okay. 25% Andrews, 6% Knox, Diggs 60, Cole Beasley 25, John Brown 43, Marquise Brown 25, Gabriel Davis 22. Oops, I'm sorry, that's Miles Boykin. No Gabriel Davis. So let's build ourselves a Gabriel Davis lineup. Because I do think
I like those other exposures though. It sounded like you were over on most of the guys we wanted to be over and under on most of the guys we wanted to be under. So
which is the byproduct is no J.K. Dobbins, 8% Yeldon, 6% Singletary. That's where I'm going down. Interesting. Okay. Well, I have a boatload of him on the main slate. So that's a differentiation play, but right there, so I'm hoping for a passing game. His price is not horrible either on the single game slate. It's still good, but it's not the 4,500 it was for the DK main slate.
Do you take that into consideration when you're building for showdowns, when you've got a lot of weight in the main slates? Do you take hedging into consideration at all?
Sometimes. I think it's hard to really consider doing it. Sorry, just let me get this uploaded because that's a good question. Yeah, so I think it's hard to consider doing that because if you feel you have chosen the best plays in the full slate and then you're doing something different, I don't know how to do it is the problem. So I hear people say, oh, I'm going to get my exposure here or I'm going to do this. It's like you have to treat each as its independent, as its own independent event. In my belief. Now, could you build a hedge lineup or something? Sure. And then put it in a single entry type thing where you can get a little weird, or put it in a league where you only have to beat 100 people. And all of a sudden you kind of get if you're playing $150 and you've got, it's like, God, I'm really low on this particular build. And that's the one that scares me the most. Hey, let me go put it in this, like FanDuel 100-man league. Right. And I only, top 12 cash. And if that happens, I'll make back, a third of my entry fees, right? Mm-hmm. I'll kind of hedge a little bit. It doesn't mean it'll make you whole, but it means if that outcome sort of happens, now you're in a small enough field where a 1% outcome, you can get like what I forget what the payout structure is, 15 or 20 times your payout, where that 1% is probably a 2x in a giant field tournament because of how freaking top heavy everything is. So that's what you would do. So if you put that in a big one, it's like, well, shit, you might as well, you might as well just go buy a Mega Millions ticket, which is 735 million, I think now.
Jordan's expression when you just said that, it was classic. That was
yes.
People out there can't see it, but that was killer. Yeah, I think what you're getting at there makes a ton of sense. It's definitely very tricky, and as far as if you have 150 in and you're putting 150 into this to try and worry about that, and all right, I'm at this percentage on this guy here, so I want to be at this percentage on this guy, especially when we get into showdowns, which are configured differently, priced differently, it just becomes too much. So it's not something that I've ever really considered. I was just curious when you brought it up, if it was something that was a big part of what you were doing.
Yeah, and then they're asking me, do I have any McKenzie? I just typed the answer in chat. We'll be at lock anyway. No, I don't, but I said you had to have 3 points or more to be in my lineups. So that's why I changed Yeldon to be 3.1 points, but I said I don't want more than 5% of him just because it's like, what's the point? So Ricard is in my main lineup, but I don't think I have him in any other lineup. But that was an intentional choice there. And of that, my main lineup isn't about 30% of what I'm playing tonight because I put that in all of my head-to-heads here and the 3-mans and the 50-50s and all that stuff. So it sort of works out for their is it Powerball? That's the big one. I don't know. One of them might. Well, you can buy tickets online now. My wife was doing that.
Tickets online.
Yeah, she was like, "Give me some numbers." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "I'm gonna buy lottery tickets." I'm like, "The drawing's tonight. I forgot to go to the store." And she's like, "No, I can do it online now." I was like, "Wait, what?" Makes sense. The pandemic. Why not?
Yeah, but now I'm just extrapolating to the point at which this time next year we're doing lotto before lock and all that. It's gonna be ugly with the way that people burn through money on things like this. Man, that's gonna be popular.
I'm telling you, the number 17, I have a good feeling about it.
33 appears in the optimal lotto lineup 22% of the time. Get on 33.
Yeah. So anyway, and then because she had to sign up for an account here in Virginia, and then she played some free game or something and ended up winning $13. So she's like, even though our tickets didn't win, I won 13. I spent 10. I made $3. I'm like, yeah, I bet everybody wins early, and then you just start losing on it. I'm like, we're not doing virtual game. No, I have zero trust in that. I know it's regulated and all that. I don't buy it. So
yeah, regulated by people who still want to get you addicted to playing their gambling game.
Yeah. So in any event, there we are.
Play more predictable things. Use your money more wisely. Spend it on Awesemo subscriptions. Get to our content, our data, and use that wisely in DFS. Don't play the lotto.
No, don't. But do play at No House Advantage because there is No House Advantage. Again, we have the free projections for all of their games. And so basically, just to finish that thought here before we get on out of here, but what we do there in that one is we look at the likelihood of success. And then it tells you the probability. So how, just because you have a gut feeling, maybe you want to kind of look and see what is actually the better play. And then worst case scenario, the far right column says over or under. So if numbers confuse you, we made it easy. So tomorrow we start off again at 1:00 with the NFL deeper dive. And then at 2:00 we have live before lock. First game kicks off at 3:05 tomorrow. And then we will have NFL live before lock. That will be at 5:40. Thank God it's not a late show, but I will be doing that with Kyle. You're getting the day off tomorrow, Terry?
I think everybody out there is only getting me in print tomorrow. So you will not get to see this glorious face all day in your face talking about DFS tomorrow like I was today.
All right. Well, I've got an article to write. Oh, I've got 2 to write. So I'm going to go do that and have some dinner. But with that, gamers, good luck.
I'm nervous having no idea where my NBA lineups are at this point.
It's only money.